Hey everyone, welcome to Open Hybrid. I'm Rhina, your host of Café con Leche for the next hour, inviting you to get social with us online. That is, tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Of course, while you're there, follow Juan on Instagram, FB, Insta Stories, Twitter at Rhina Valentin. So, the wave of discontent and frustrations due to the city's budget cuts has grown across New York City school communities that many parents, educators, and elected leaders now know, that these cuts will deeply affect our schools, leading to the elimination of many programs that are vital to students and working class communities. And so here to share more on I want to say the policies of school budgets and or cuts is the medical lecturer at CUNY School of Medicine at the City College of New York. And she's an education activist and advocate. And my go-to person with parenting skills is Dr. Kaliris Salas-Ramirez. And when I say parenting skills, I mean parenting within the policies of school and the Department of Education. So welcome, Kaliris. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rhina. It's exciting to be here.
Well, I mean, I wish you were under different circumstances, but somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. But, just really quickly to introduce to our viewers, my daughter attended the same school as her son. And so she was the chair of the PTA and again, she's always my counsel and she continues to be my counsel, even though our kids are in different schools now, just because she's the kind of person who pays attention to like every single detail when it comes to the wellness of our children and the education system, aside from certain rules that she plays within it. So you can elaborate further. I just want everybody to understand why we're going to have this conversation.
Yeah, I've been in the system for about 8 years. And within that time, I've served and done everything from being PA president to president's council president to president of the Community Education Council for District 4 in East Harlem. And now I currently sit on the New York City School Board. I am appointed by Mark Levine. And so I get to vote on all the contracts, all the policies, all the regulations that we have to abide by in our New York City public school system.
And so let's just give everybody a little taste of what's occurred in a really succinct timeline matter, right? Because there was something that occurred in March, and you can go through them in detail with regards to these budget cuts, and that were, I guess you saw were not necessarily brought to people's attention, right? And then there were certain acts and or lawsuits that were taken to combat it, and just give us a quick timeline of where it started to where we are now.
Yeah, so in February, every mayor has to submit their proposed budget for the whole city so that city council can engage in budget negotiations. So February, that is released. And then sometime in March and April, the city council has an opportunity to engage with different advocacy groups and their constituents to see whether this budget is actually appropriate. And so some of us that are knee deep in this work realized that there was going to be at least $1 billion cut from the education system, from the Department of Education. And we got really concerned. So we started engaging other advocacy groups and started working together. My coalition is called New Yorkers for Racially Just Public Schools. And we started working with the People's Plan and brought together the fact that different social services will impact outcomes in our students. Fast forward to June, we start hearing rumblings that, May, we start hearing rumblings that City Council is not engaging any advocacy groups in these budget negotiations, that at this point they're fine and they're engaging with the mayor and negotiating numbers. And then in June, we very quickly hear that the city council is going to vote, that there's been a handshake between Adrienne Adams, the speaker, and Mayor Adams, and that the budget is going to be something that they have already, signed on the dotted line. We were concerned, I was concerned as a member of the panel for educational policy, because we are supposed to see that estimated budget before city council votes on it and finalizes it. So the school board is supposed to also pass a vote on that. And so what ended up happening was that on June 14th, a vote was done by city council. They approved the budget. That's the budget that's going to start July 1st in the fiscal year. On June 23rd, that's when the vote comes up at the panel for educational policy. We're informed by the chancellor, who had actually submitted an emergency declaration allowing for city council to have the vote, that our vote is procedural. And so in turn, no matter what the outcome of that vote was, that was the budget that was slated for the Department of Education. And so several advocacy groups, specifically Lainey Hameson from Class Size Matters, identified that the law 2590G was broken. And so a lawsuit was submitted to the New York City Supreme Court, where Judge Lyle Frank basically told the city that they were not allowed to to have these cuts,
Right.
because they did not follow procedure in terms of this vote. And so he allowed city council to have a revote.
Right, to have a revote to, in essence, restore the budget cuts that were approximately what, 469 million?
So we think that ultimately it might end up being $1 billion to the whole system, but 469 million is the total number of funds that will be reduced specifically from our schools. And so that would be the impact directly on school communities. There are other things that the Department of Education pays for, but that specifically is the money that will go into schools for them to hire teachers, to have programming, and to support all of their students.
And so let's just say, as a parent, as someone who wants to be involved, like, what are the things that one should be looking for or looking to be a part of, so that they can contribute to just being advocates for their children, for advocating not only their children's school, which is what we did when we did our demonstration on Foley Square.
Yes. So there are several advocacy groups that you can engage with. Of course, as I mentioned, New Yorkers for Racially Just Public Schools, Make the Road, the Coalition for Educational Justice, the Alliance for Quality Education. But the Department of Education also has its parent leader structures. So beyond your PA or your PTA or your SLT, the school leadership team in your school, you also, every single district has a local school board called the Community Education Council. They have the ability to pass resolutions and also engage with the DOE in order to be able to have these conversations in terms of what are the concerns locally in our districts. I serve on the panel. They meet every month. So once a month, you find out your district and when their CEC meets. The panel for educational policy, which by law, again, is the New York City School Board, I will say that our school board is under mayoral control. So there are always going to be more members appointed by the mayor than there are from any other constituency. And so a lot of people consider the panel for educational policy a rubber stamp for the mayor. Those of us that are borough president appointees have been shaking it up a little bit this year. We hope to continue to engage our communities. We also meet once a month. And so people can also look in the website of the Department of Education, find out our names, our emails are there. If there's anything that you want to engage in advocacy around, feel free to communicate with us. But across the city, there's constantly actions trying to maintain the funding or get more funding into our public schools and ensure that we have equity in our school system. There's lots of different policies that impact particularly our Black and Latino and poor students that we want to make sure that parents continue to stay engaged with and fight for.
Wonderful. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us today and educate us and our viewers on how to be active within your local community, especially serving the next generation. I mean, my favorite line that I say in everything I touch and put my hands on is, our goal and our objective here in our existence is to leave things better than we found them. And sometimes that requires a fight.
Absolutely.
But you got to know how to do it. You got to know how to do it. So I really appreciate you taking the time to break it down for us. And once again, that was Dr. Kaliris Salas-Ramirez. She is a medical lecturer, educational activist, and advocate. However, she also serves on the panel education policy, which is the committee, right, for the DOE. And as she mentioned, if you want more information on how to get involved, you can just go to the DOE's website and look under panel education policy. And of course, we want to mention, if you want to sign the petition to restore the cuts to New York City public schools, you can visit actionnetwork.org. And that's what we got for you today, people. We have to take a quick break, but when we return, we're going to hear about the many events taking place in New York and Puerto Rico to honor civil activist, community organizer, and education leader, Dr. Evelina Lopez Antonetti. Don't go anywhere.